What is up, winning team? Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, you are going to want to stay tuned for this video because we're going to be talking about Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith and Scientology. Yes, I told you guys that after we do a deep dive, when I really wrap my brain around this whole Scientology malarkey, we're going to start to talk about the celebrities, the influencers, the people known to be connected because, guys, according to some people and some things, which we're going to delve into, Jada herself was far more dedicated to Scientology than Will. I say was, but I actually believe they're still Scientologists, and I'm going to explain why that is. But I just think the fact that Jada was more dedicated, according to a lot of people, is already very telling. Because I actually believe that Jada is like the perfect poster child. She is the epitome of what happens when you dedicate yourself to Scientology. So if you guys enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe if you're feeling the vibe and you want to join the tribe. Don't forget to let me know any of your thoughts, whatever you think, in the comment section down below. And of course, like the video just because I appreciate it. I always check my likes on my videos, by the way. God bless every single one of you. If life's a game, let's play to win, and let's get straight into this, because this is juicy. Now, if you don't really know about Scientology, you want to know more details, by the way, I have a whole playlist. I've delved into exactly what it's about, exactly what they say, exactly what L. Ron Hubbard wants to achieve with this Scientology stuff. So check out the playlist. Let's start with Jada versus Will and both of the popular beliefs of them. And I say popular beliefs because in general, when I listen to people commenting on stuff, I find in general, because people are not really deeply either scientific or mathematical or logical or deeply like spiritual or into the Bible, you know, that kind of thing. I kind of think that things that people say to me, they kind of sound a little bit like you're not quite seeing what's exactly in front of your eyes, right? And so I want to first of all start off by talking about this whole thing of the celebrity center that Scientology has. Now, if you guys don't know, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, I'm going to tell you guys, just to give you a bit of backstory. I've been looking into Scientology deeply the last, I don't know how many months now. I visited one of the Scientology buildings in Edinburgh, Scotland this year. I also visited Scientology in New York City this year. I'm just thinking, how have I not gone to London? I want to go to London as well, if there's any Scientology places in London. So I have had I've had experiences with real life Scientologists in the physical buildings. When I went to Edinburgh, I did the personality test. And I did it authentically because I was like, let's test this out, see what this is all about. I want to see what they have to say, because the thing about me is I know what God has to say about me and the things I've been through and where I'm at. So I was like, I wanted to compare. Like, I know people think this is insane, right? And a lot of people have been worried, like, oh no, she's talking to Scientologists. I'm like, it's fine, because I am so deeply rooted in God, and I truly believe that the truth will always hold itself enough on its own. So when I was in New York, in Edinburgh, I was like, yeah. So I said what I said. I had listened to the guy. I observed it. I wish I'd recorded the conversation in a lot of ways, but then I also wish I hadn't, because I did say stuff that I wouldn't prefer to be on YouTube, not because I wouldn't share it. Listen, guys, if it wasn't for the fact that, anyway, no, I digress. And then I went to New York, and then in New York, I made up a story, and I haven't put out that footage just yet because I'm wondering if it's wise for me to do so, you know, for certain reasons, things I can't really talk about on the internet. However, I have had so many experiences with Scientology myself personally, in person, as well as studying it, looking at the science. I've done the videos on the auditing. I've done videos on everything, which apparently, and this is already where it gets very interesting, because I was watching a video by a guy called Aaron, and his channel is called Growing Up in Scientology. His mum brought him into Scientology, I think, at like 4 years old, so he was a part of it. One thing that he said in one of his videos, which I found truly fascinating, is that Jada had gone through more auditing than he had. Now, we know auditing, we know exactly what auditing is. I have done a whole video about that, so you can check it out if you need more details. But basically, it's the process where they remove these memories from your reactive mind. They help you to delete things that are stopping you from being the best version of yourself. whatever. We're going to come back to that in a second, because first of all, I want to talk about the two different ways that have been discussed as to how Will Smith and Jada got involved in Scientology. Okay. And I know, I want to just acknowledge that they have tried to say, oh, we weren't really that involved, and we weren't really this, and we weren't really that, and all of that stuff, right? Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well. So stay tuned. Let's start with Will Smith. So with Will Smith, according to some of the things he said, well, a lot of things he said, he's spent a lot of time talking about Tom Cruise bringing him into Scientology, or just Tom Cruise as a whole being there for him. So for me, my observations is that Tom Cruise kind of was a good friend to Will. And it just so happened that Tom Cruise was a Scientologist. And so Will kind of gravitated towards having a friend, having a buddy, having people there for him on his side. And that involved him in something like Scientology in that type of way, which I understand. I think that a lot of religion, I say this like this because as a person, a Bible-believing follower of Jesus, filled with the Holy Spirit, I do not believe in religion. I believe God has nothing to do with religion. In fact, I believe that I believe in the end times, it's going to be God versus religion, by the way. That's the final battle, in my opinion, but not for this video. I believe that a lot of people really gravitate towards like these types of things because they want something to be a part of, or they're lacking in community and whatever. Yes, I can so understand that. We live in a world where, like, despite the fact that we all have all this access, despite the fact you guys are sitting here watching my video, and this video could be watched by the whole entire world and it could be watched also by no one, a lot of people are still lonely, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people are still very lonely, lacking in community, which is one of the reasons why I'm just like, us as humans are so dumb. But anyway, so that is what I'm gauging. And it kind of makes sense for Will Smith and who he is, because I truly believe as somebody like Will Smith, he's handsome, not my cup of tea, not my type of good looking. I'm not going to lie. I have zero attraction to Will Smith, but I can acknowledge that he's good looking. I can acknowledge that, right? But he's not my cup of tea. So I just want to say that it's so far from my cup of tea, actually, like the other spectrum of my actual cup of tea. In fact, it's not even a cup of tea to me. You know what I'm saying? So he's handsome. He's intelligent. I believe he graduated from Harvard, Ivy League, status and everything. On top of being wildly talented, he's incredible. He's very charismatic. He's very good at acting. He's good at singing. He's good at dancing. He's a great character. I believe Will Smith is so severely talented as a person. And actually, that's why I think, and this is the thing, why I think it's harder for him. And it's similar to Britney Spears. Britney Spears, again, you guys know I've been reading her book. I haven't finished it just yet. And when I finish it, I'm going to read Jada's book next, which will come to Jada in a second. But anyway, so I can see that as that type of person, the world is not going to be so safe for you because in general, a lot of people are going to be jealous of you. A lot of people are not going to get it. A lot of people are going to think you're just lucky and all this stuff because he's handsome, he's intelligent, he's creative. And so I think the lacking of community is something I can 100% believe is something that is real in Will Smith's life. People might not think that's the case, but there's a difference between having a fan and having a friend. You know what I'm saying? There's people that love you because of what you do and how talented you are, what they can get out of you. And then there's people who just love you as a person, right? And so even in Viola Davis's book, so I read Viola Davis's book this year. Very good book. Viola Davis has been through so much. She's the one who's in How to Get Away with Murder, all these things. She specifically talks about having a conversation with Will Smith in the book. It's a really good book. I highly recommend people to read it because it's an amazing book. Yes, can you imagine that the Lord turned me into a reader this year? I hate reading, guys. But like God has just turned me into a reader. I love the Bible though. The Bible's the one book I can absolutely read for hours. Anyway, so with Will, I can see that type of necessity of community and people, especially at that status. In that sense, I get it. But it seems like he was more in it for that. And she, Jada, was more enamored, is that the word? Or taken in by the whole, ethos, beliefs, principles of Scientology. Which, when we look at it from that perspective, it is exactly what I've told you guys before. Jada is exactly what is the result of Scientology. Because I've told you guys, it sounds nice on the outside. Superficially, it all sounds good. I've done videos in depth about this. So if you're confused as to what I mean, check them out in my Scientology playlist. Right, probably going to be linked on this video because I'm going to put this video in that playlist. But Scientology is all about humans on our own. We're not evil, right? We're good with evil added. That's exactly what L. Ron Hubbard said from his mouth, right? And I heard it from his mouth. Also, when I was in New York, and I watched this whole backstory thing that they had in New York City about L. Ron Hubbard. It was just insane, by the way, guys. I was just like, I can't believe I'm actually here. I can't believe I'm actually like tapped enough to actually be in this position, to actually decide to be here of all places. And I can't believe that I booked a hotel right near Scientology because I didn't plan to go there, by the way. I just so happened that I walked out from where my hotel was. I was walking up and down and around and just like exploring, like literally the first day I was in New York City, like last month. And I was like, I can't believe this. I was like, I have to come back here. So anyway, they had this whole thing about L. Ron Hubbard, right? And L. Ron Hubbard, I've got so much to say about this man. Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts about this man, but we won't get into that. But the point is, anyway, they have so many things to say, and I can so see that like part of the whole ethos of this is that, he says that we as humans are good with evil added to us. But otherwise by ourselves, without this reactive mind, without all the past traumas and this, that, and the other, we would be perfect, according to L. Ron Hubbard. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of what I think about that because I have, and I will do more in depth in the future. But here's the thing, and this is what I've said is a big issue of Scientology before, is that his version of correcting that is that you don't need to let anything stop you from doing whatever it is that your will wants you to do, which for me is the fundamental belief of Satanism. Because what is the law of Satan? Do what thou wilt. Do whatever you want. Like, just do whatever you want, regardless of how it affects people. And L. Ron Hubbard himself gave this specific example. He said, and I heard his words because it was in a video of an interview that he had. Of course, this whole thing was staged, and he purposefully said everything the way he said it on purpose, right? Because this is what these people do. So L. Ron Hubbard says, so if you're somebody who wants to hunt ducks, nothing should stop you from hunting a duck. However, according to the duck, you might be the enemy, right? Because you're killing ducks. But that's what he's saying with Scientology. And he made a point of it, and he just left it there. And I know that he left it there and he used that example because most people don't think deeper. Like most people, when they think about like even the scripture that I just mentioned about Satanism, do what thou wilt, like do whatever you want. They think, oh yeah, that sounds great. Because to an extent, that's exactly the same thing that God is telling us. It's just like God is like, but here are the consequences. And that's the point. So when we say do whatever you want, if doing whatever you want is you want to have a medium steak, you want to have a rare steak, you want to have a medium rare steak, you want to have a well-done steak. Everybody wants to have, you want to have just completely rare steak. Everybody, in that regard, we can all sit there and be like, yeah, you go ahead and do what you want, like you do. But as soon as it becomes, and this is my problem, as soon as it becomes, we start to talk about certain topics. We start to talk about predators. We start to talk about people that take advantage of others. And we now start to talk about them doing what they want, because the same way you guys, we're all saying do what you want to the people having a rare steak, medium steak, whatever steak, is the same thing as us telling, is the same thing that people like Jeffrey Epstein were living through. Do whatever you want. Do whoever you want, regardless of their age, regardless of their consent. Do you see how when we go to those levels, it gets heinous? And that's what I believe what happens with Jada. I believe with Jada, things get heinous because the whole essence of Scientology in and of itself is heinous. I don't even know what the definition of heinous is. Maybe I should do a whole video on the definition of heinous, right? But it's heinous because I love how I doubled down to use a word that I just acknowledged. I'm not sure the exact definition of. Anyway, I don't think I'm any different to any other human because I honestly believe most people speaking in English, because I always have to check definitions, don't even know what they're talking about. In fact, I got into a whole discussion about this with the lady in Scientology in New York City, because we were talking, she was like, in Scientology, we like to define all the words. Her name was Cheryl. She was a really nice lady, actually. And it's funny because I picked up that her accent wasn't a New York accent. It was from somewhere else, because she sounds exactly like my actual friend that I met, the one who invited me to Italy earlier this year. And I was like, why do their accents sound exactly the same? Turns out they're both from California. Anyway, I'm learning about this stuff now, so this is cool. I was talking with her, it was Cheryl, and we were talking about how, because she was like, she asked me like the definition of one of the words that she was using. And I was like, well, honestly, you'd have to define what you mean, because I've acknowledged that people in general use words with definitions. This is me being very honest at the moment. When I said this, they use words, but they don't know the definition of what they mean, or the definition is like very nuanced, or like it's like something that they've heard what they think it means or whatever. And she was like, yeah, I agree. That's exactly why we define our words in Scientology, which I have to, this is why I think they are an incredible, perfect lie, Scientology, because they think about this type of stuff. They're very logical. They appeal to the intelligent mind. They appeal to all the different types of ways of thinking. So I can completely see how somebody like Jada would just like throw herself into this and love it, because it's like the whole thing with Eve. It's like literally being in the book of Genesis, right? And telling Eve, yeah, do whatever you want. Like, who cares who it affects? Like, because that's Jada's energy. She's very selfish. She's deeply selfish. Like, well, let's just even imagine for a second, right? That this is all staged Hollywood stuff, everything that goes on between them. So everything that's happening, they've been told to do, and this is orchestrated. Even still, it would have been orchestrated in such a way that Jada comes out of the situation looking more like on top of things, and Will looking worse. Because like I've said, it's exactly like Adam and Eve, if you ask me, because like Eve has gone and done this and gained this for herself, completely selfish decision, right? And then you have Adam, who now becomes known. Like, what do people talk about Adam? Because I think about this all the time, because I've been reading Adam and Eve like crazy over the last year. You guys know this. I've just like been obsessed with Genesis, like chapter 3 and 4. I've just like can't get out of Genesis for some reason, even though we just did Revelations. Check out the Revelations playlist, by the way. I did finish all 22 chapters of the book of Revelations, and I've got videos coming out from that as well, but we'll talk about that at another point. So, you know, I'm looking at Adam and Eve. Adam did so many great things in the Bible, but the thing that a lot of people consider him with is everything that went wrong with Eve. Like, oh, why did you listen to her? Why did you do this? But God actually like gave so much to Adam. Like, this is also why I even mentioned Will in the beginning and all his accolades, right? God was the one who says, like, Adam, it's not good for you to hear the animals, and here's everything. Yeah, you go and name the animals. Adam was to name the animals. Adam was to tend the garden. Adam gave a name to freaking Eve. God didn't even tell Adam, like, oh, by the way, Eve is your wife. Adam over himself was like, she's my wife. Like, that's Eve. He named her. Like, Adam did so much in the beginning, but all of that gets lost because of what his wife did. Sounds like Will and Jada, if you ask me. And one thing I find really fascinating, and somebody else pointed this out, is how, you know, a lot of these celebrities in the celebrity center, and I'm going to do a whole separate video about how Scientologists are with celebrities is the same how a lot of Christians are with celebrities in church today. I'm going to talk about that separately. But what I will say is that they let I'm not surprised. I believe Will and Jada are still Scientologists. I believe they are, because at least definitely Jada, because everything about what she's doing, we've studied it. We know what it is. Scientology is about don't second guess what you want to do for yourself. Don't second guess this. Like, go straight, run head first into everything that suits you. Don't worry about how it affects somebody else. L. Ron Hubbard himself, right? L. Ron Hubbard, which I was talking about this lady in New York. We're talking about L. Ron Hubbard as well. Oh my gosh. It was insane. Like, I was just thinking, God, how is my life like this, where I'm just here, like, talking to this lady? Like, it's just nuts. But anyway, I was in there for like 2 hours in New York. But anyway, so we're talking about L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard himself, right? And this is what I want you guys to understand. He said in his past life, he feels like he was Cecil Rhodes. I did a whole video about this, so you can watch it. He feels like he was, in his past life, Cecil Rhodes. Now, one thing that we know, this is where it gets so interesting, isn't it? One thing that we know about Scientology is that they tell you with this auditing. Now, I want you guys to realize something here. Aaron, from growing up in Scientology, was taken into Scientology at 4 years old by his mum, says that Jada had more auditing than he did. She went more through the process of, let's take you back into your mind. I read through to you guys like the whole process of auditing and processing and all of that, which we discussed at length. She he said that she's done way more than he ever did being in it, right? Not to mention that Jada was buddy with John Travolta's wife, who is now dead, who was level OT8, one of the highest levels of operating thetans, which I talked about this and I broke down all the levels in a couple of videos, right? How at the very beginning, they're like, we're just going to take you back to remove all of the traumatic things you've been through in your life, right? And then everybody's like, yes, it's a perfect lie, because we all can appreciate and acknowledge, I'm sure, as adults, that the things you've been through have affected who you are today. And had you not been through those things, you may do things differently or better in certain ways today. We can all accept that. We're all okay with that, I believe, anyway. And so, or we should be, right? But then it goes a step further, because then it goes to operating level 3, which is, oh, you need to delete every single bad memory, including the day you were born, because the day you were born was also apparently a traumatic situation, according to Scientology, right? And then you think you're done, but you're not, because you're only at OT, operating thetan level 3. You got to go all the way up to, they have up to level 9, if I'm not mistaken. So 8 is another one. What goes on after that? Oh, it's not just that you, the thetan, has this stuff. There are thetans attached to you that have their own traumas, and you need to remove those, and you need to remove those. And this is why I'm saying that I believe it's a lie, because it's an infinite pursuit. You're going to spend the rest of forever until you die trying to remove all these thetans. You're exactly equivalent, in my opinion, to the scientists who obsess over like one small thing, one question, one idea for the rest of their life. And then they die, still not having the answer to the question, having dedicated everything to that. And now, where are you at when you get to that position? So imagine being OT level 8, because when you go up the OT levels, which we've talked about this before, the operating thetan levels, right? When you go up the levels, it basically just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, right? Oh, well, actually the thetans were in clumps. Well, actually the thetans were this. Actually the thetans were that, the ones that are attached to you. And then it's like, you go all the way back, and you have to go through the memories of all these thetans. So that's where these past life things come into it. That's why people in Scientology believe in this past life thing, because the thetans attached to you have to go back in their memories, and you have to go back into this and all of this into whatever. And it's just nuts, right? So when L. Ron Hubbard says that in his past life, he believes he was Cecil Rhodes, which I honestly think L. Ron Hubbard knows that he's chatting nonsense. The way that he's talking is like, he knows that people are stupid, and he knows that we are vulnerable as humans, and he takes advantage of it. That's how I look at L. Ron Hubbard. So L. Ron Hubbard's looking at like everyone like, yeah. Like in my past life, I was Cecil Rhodes. What is he saying? Because this is what you need to understand about what's going on with Jada and everything. What he is saying is that somebody who went to another place, dominated a certain industry because they were there and they just did, and they decided that's what they wanted to do, right? He relates to them. Now, that person, whether you acknowledge how their effect was on others or not, is another thing. Because if you look at somebody like Cecil Rhodes, if you ask a lot of people, like I've said to you guys before, that my own ancestry, my own lineage, even my own names come from the countries named after Cecil Rhodes, right? Like, if you ask the people that come from there, like, what do you think about Cecil Rhodes? Whatever. They don't have a positive opinion about him. Why? Because he came to the country and he took advantage of this and he did that and he did that. But according to L. Ron Hubbard, that's exactly whatever you want to do is what you need to do. And according to L. Ron Hubbard, that's who he was in his past life. Can you make this stuff up? I can't make it up. And this is what I'm trying to say to you guys, that when it comes to somebody like Jada, yeah, selfishness, self-preservation is exactly what Scientology is about. That's exactly what it encourages. So yes, I can so imagine a reality where both Will and Jada find themselves involved in Scientology. Will Smith from the perspective of maybe, and I'm just suggesting, as I always say to you guys, those of you who've been on my channel for a while, you already know this, but I haven't said it in a while. So let me say it for those of you who might be new, or this might be your first video listening to me, that at the end of the day, we don't actually know what's going on with these celebrities. Like, I can't tell you, none of us know what's going on with anybody in any situation where we're not physically there, okay? Even if what I'm saying, that's why I'm talking about this in a way to just say what I've heard, what I've seen, what I understand, what I think, as still valuable information that we can learn from, right? So just take that into account. I'm not trying to say that I know exactly what's going on with Will and Jada behind the scenes, because no, I don't, right? But the point is, let's suggest that Will is the one who gets into this, and he talked a lot about Tom Cruise. I believe the fact that he's been spoken so much about Tom Cruise. Oh, I didn't even get into the school. Gosh. The fact that he talks so much about Tom Cruise, I believe, is because of the friendship. And then we've got obviously Jada, who I believe, was more dedicated to the actual thing. Now, they both went out of their way, both her and her book, them on the Red Table Talk, her, little show that she does, even though she's a fraud everywhere else, and she's a fraud in general, but we won't talk about that. They have gone out of their way to say that they're not Scientologists. They're not part of Scientology. Like, Scientology isn't, like, you know what I'm saying, all this stuff, or maybe they tried it out, but they've left. Now, here's the thing. First of all, let's look at some details of things that these guys did. So I have some notes here that I've written. They say this, right? But in 2009, the Smiths opened a school. I'm calling them the Smiths. Who knows if they're even the Smiths, right? Because according to them, they've been separated for 7 years, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. So here we go. So in 2009, Will Smith and Jada, sorry, I've written notes because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget certain details, opened an elementary school, a private elementary school in Calabasas called the New Village Leadership Academy. Now, many people are speculating that this school was a Scientology school, of which both of them have denied those claims. However, the directors of the school, a lot of the highest levels of leadership, were Scientologists, and they were teaching the study tech resources of Scientology in their schools, right? So they're teaching the principles of Scientology in the schools. These schools shut down after a couple of years. Why, you might be asking? Well, because the parents weren't happy about what's going on with their kids. Now, obviously, once again, I'm just like, God, how is it that this has happened? That it just so happens I work in the education industry, so I find this really interesting. Especially as somebody who has as deep thoughts and opinions as I do. I don't teach the kids. Like, I don't tell the kids about what I think. That's up to their families and their parents, like what to think, their principles spiritually, religiously. I don't get into that. I just teach maths and science. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I do. Whatever you do, whatever you believe, it's not up to me to tell you because that's not my job, right? So I find it interesting when these education things do this type of stuff. So the parents weren't really happy. They say it's not a Scientology school, but they were teaching the study tech, the information, the resources, using resources from Scientology. And a lot of these kids were getting school aid in order to be able to go there in the first place. I think it was a far majority, if I'm not mistaken. That's really interesting, isn't it? On top of the fact that Tom Cruise's daughter also went to this school. So we have all these connections. Now, I honestly believe that Scientology is willing to allow Will and Jada to pretend they're not part of Scientology and still bring people in. Because, oh yes, they get commission for bringing people in. Sorry, I've just read this here. I believe that we will still allow it because the point isn't about, like, a lot of people think, I think what people don't understand is when it comes to people who are in spiritual positions, and this is unfortunately true of both God and Satan, what is the overall public opinion is very far less important than what's actually going on in these scenarios. That's why God of the Bible, who I believe in, will allow his own people to be contradictory to what his scriptures are because he understands people and he loves us. God loves us, so he's like, look, you're not going to be perfect and I'm going to have to just deal with the fact that you're going to kind of make things look bad and I'm going to just do the best I can, whatever. That's God's way of it. With the kingdom of darkness, it's like, look, as long as you're doing the work of treachery, we don't care what our reputation is. We don't care if you're, like, as long the higher level of treachery, and that's why I believe the celebrity center that they have, which if I'm not mistaken, I saw Oprah Winfrey in, which is another whole can of worms to look into. Let me know if you guys want to know about that. Then if that's another whole thing, then it's kind of like, if that's the case, if you can have a more of a greater impact, because a lot of the celebrities were particularly used more so for bringing people in. Right? And as I said to you guys, even when I was talking to the lady in New York City, even when I was talking to the gentleman in Edinburgh, in Scotland, it's the same thing. They were telling me that, oh, Scientology isn't a religion. Like, you can be a Scientologist and anything else at the same time. You can be a Scientologist and Muslim. You can be a Scientologist and a scientist. The lady in New York, she's like, yeah, we've got Scientologists using our things in, was it her or was it the other guy? One of them anyway told me that, yeah, we've got people using Scientology in hospitals. Oh, it was L. Ron Hubbard when I was in New York because I watched a video of all these, who is L. Ron Hubbard? Because I asked her, I was like, can I watch that? Because I was just like, I want to see what that's all about. He was like, L. Ron Hubbard was like, yeah, Scientology is being used by everyone. It's being used in every way, right? It's not a religion. What do they call it? All of them told me, a religion of religions. Well, not the guy in Edinburgh, but the lady in New York and also L. Ron Hubbard. oh, it's a religion of religions. It's nothing, but it's everything. And that's actually exactly why, by the way, I believe Scientology is like it's the perfect outfit for the devil to wear in the end times. Because every religion, bearing in mind that God isn't a part of religion, can unite under Scientology. Because Scientology in and of itself is, you can be a doctor and you can do Scientology. You can be Muslim, you can be Jewish, you can be Christian, you can be Catholic, and that's what they'll tell you. They'll say, oh, we've got all people of all different religions that are Scientologists. That's what's crazy. And that's what's crazy about Owen Hubbard and why he reminds me so much of Satan. It's like, you don't have to believe in this as some kind of organized religion. And isn't it funny how both Will and Jada have gone out of their way to talk about how they were neither that, well, Jada says she was never a fan of organized religion, right? Will tries to say, oh, well, he was raised Baptist and his grandma would roll on her grave if he was ever involved in Scientology. But guess what? Scientology has presented itself as something that isn't contradicting those things in the first place. So you can do both. That doesn't matter. Like, it's not like me saying to myself that when me specifically saying I believe in God of the Bible, right? That's me saying I believe in God of the Bible. That is me putting myself in a position where I do this, and I don't do something else. That's what me disconnecting and saying I don't associate with the God of the Quran. I don't associate with the God of any of the other gods. In fact, I don't associate with them. With Scientology, it's like, yeah, it's a religion of religions. And then they try to present themselves as purely logical. That's what the lady in New York was saying to me. She was like, yeah, this is like all science. This is all science. And a lot of people say it's all science because they talk about it as if science is something to trust in, as if science isn't changing constantly. I talked about this in my God versus Science video, which is the best video on my channel. You should check that out if you haven't already. Watch it. It's very long, but it's so good, right? I talk about how, George Lemaitre, the scientist who also, again, interestingly enough, his father was a priest or something like that, or a vicar or whatever, and he ends up in science. So I'm just like, why do I relate to these people? Why do I have grown up in both science and both, godliness and whatever? He was the reason why people now believe in the Big Bang Theory. He proved that the universe was expanding, not retracting. Even Albert Einstein believed that the universe was static. Right? Prior. So we're just changing all the time. Just like the genetics. Now we all accept that genetics is one of those things where you have dominant and recessive alleles. If something is dominant, it's going to probably show itself always. Recessive is only going to show itself if there's 2 recessive in the kids. That's why children can have all these different what do they call them? Genotypes, phenotypes, all of that type of stuff, ways that the DNA presents itself. Yeah, that's new information. Like about 60 years ago, they believed all kids were just 50-50 versions of their parents. Science is nothing to be trusted in either, but that's what we all accept as the factual thing. So that's what Scientology does well. They'll be like, yeah, this is science. Even call itself Scientology, the Church of Scientology. They're like, everything that you want, everything you could consider, we're all this under one bracket. It's Satanism. It's perfect. And that's why I do believe that Jada and Will, I believe Scientology plays a huge role in that relationship dynamic. I don't know. For me, if that might even be, let's throw this question out there. Maybe I'll leave the video on this for you guys because it's got so much to say on this. My goodness. What if the reason Will isn't leaving Jada the way that a lot of people think he should is because of the affiliations of Scientology and the fact that he'd have to leave Scientology as a whole. And we all know how that goes because that doesn't end well. We're going to talk more about that in a lot of upcoming videos. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Yeah, this is kind of a nuts topic to talk about, but you guys tell me what you guys think. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Let me know if you have. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe if you're feeling the vibe and you want to join the tribe. God bless every single one of you guys watching this, and I'll see you. Did I say if life's a game? If life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.